Okay, so what are you afraid of? Everybody has something that they're afraid of. Nobody has no fear of something. For example, I am terrified of clowns. I don't really care for spiders or snakes, which those are minimal things. But today I'm going to talk to you about fear and phobia. Fear is something that we're all born with. That is innate. Everybody has it. Phobia is an exaggerated fear. When you have a fear that gets to the point where it is too much and it's interfering with your daily activity, that is what they consider a phobia. Authors Morris and Crouchwell define fear as an intense emotion that is associated with cognitive, behavioral, and/or physiological components of anxiety. Pretty much in a nutshell, it's a deep-seated emotion. Now that you're going to understand phobias, let's look into degrees of fear. In the Journal of Pediatric Review, Dr. John Showalter suggests that fear is a normal part of life and usually are most vivid and ubiquitous during childhood. Fear is an emotional and physiological response to an extreme danger. At their best, fear helps to keep one safe, which would make sense. You're not going to walk up to a snake because you're afraid of them, which is good because if you're a rattlesnake and they bite you, you could die. So, that being said, some phobias can be harmless. An exaggerated fear, you can have a phobia of spiders. Those types of things are harmless, but when they interact and affect your everyday activity, it becomes a phobia that obviously is becoming a problem. So what would be your exaggerated fear? Is there anything that you fear so much that it almost scares you? That could be a good one.
Yep.
So, leading into that, specific phobias are the next point. Specific phobias are ones that are certain, like people being afraid of spiders, people being afraid of clowns. Those types of things are normal, actually considered normal. Common are, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America states that specific phobias commonly focus on animals, insects, germs, heights, thunder, driving, public transportation, flying, which is one of my top, dental or medical procedures, and elevators, which most of you know that I'm terrified of elevators. So those would be specific phobias or fears. You can kind of use the word either way, but when it's exaggerated, there's no reason for me to be afraid of an elevator, but I am. So those are a few examples of specific phobias. The other category of phobias would be social phobias, and those are the ones that I am particularly terrified of. The National Institute of Health and Medicine suggests that a social phobia is a strong fear of being judged by others and of being embarrassed. This fear can be so strong that it gets in the way of going to work or school or doing everyday things. Everyone's felt anxious or embarrassed at one time or another, but people with a social phobia actually worry about these things weeks before they would ever occur, to the point where they won't go outside. They won't attempt to interact with other people because they are terrified of how they are being perceived. So if that were a fear, eventually if it were to go undealt with, it would become a phobia. Then you're looking at people who isolate themselves away from society, and that's another extreme phobia. So obviously phobias can be dangerous if they aren't treated as far as mental health and or medicine. So not to put you in a panic, but now that you've learned about fear and phobia, it is safe to say that everybody has some degree of fear, and most people will have a degree of a phobia, whether it be something harmless like an insect or a spider, or something severe like social phobia where you don't want to go outside and you shut your blinds and isolate yourself from the world. So, again, phobia is defined as an unreasonable fear and categorized into the two types, specific, and social phobias. So what is it that you fear the most? Anybody?
Elevators.
You're terrified of elevators?
Math.
You can't get both of you done.
I hate math.
Are you terrified of it?
Math.
It's understandable.
They have classes, math anxiety,
I know. I should actually take one.
and heights.
Yeah,
Austin,
heights is a
is there
big one.
I'm terrified of heights.
Austin, is there anything that you're terrified of? Not anything at all?
Nothing. He's tough.
Sharks,
That's a lie.
sharks is another one for me.
Time.
Sharks. Yeah.
Time, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Future. I get scared of that type of stuff. What about you, Brooke?
Spiders.
Really? Spiders kind of creep me out, but
You okay?
I think it'll be alright. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for sitting at this. And